Perigo and Boyle shared research that studied first and second language learners and found that both language learners utilize existing knowledge, graphophonics, syntax, and semantics to make sense of their reading. Additionally, language learners draw upon their linguistic knowledge to help them make predictions from a story's title, contents, and pictures. Cognition allows learners to comprehend what they are reading, and metacognition helps them decode difficult text as well as correct misread passages. Explicit teaching of cognitive and metacognitive strategies during group readings increase academic learning. Perigo and Boyle suggested several reading strategies to help language learners on their way to becoming proficient readers. Two ideas that I would like to highlight are whole class reading and guided reading. Teachers should incorporate both works of fiction and nonfiction in whole class reading activities. There are several avenues teachers can take with whole class reading activities: small groups, pairs, and silent reading. In small groups, students read and discuss what they have read to one another. In pairs, students take turns reading and supporting each other with their reading from start to finish. Silent reading provides students with a stress-free environment to read at their own speed. Students will learn to process information quickly and uninterrupted. More importantly, silent reading prepares them for real-life situations. Guided reading is another excellent reading medium for language learners, as they are smaller and teacher-led. Reading materials should be at the zone of proximal development for language learners, and difficult vocabulary should be pre-taught. This should be followed with a KWL chart, which students can record their predictions, questions, and answers. Guided reading allows students to learn from their peers in a supportive, low-anxiety environment.
One strategy that I found interesting was the directed reading thinking activity. This is where the teacher will supply the name of a book and ask for predictions from the class, and then ask the class to read a small selection and follow it up with questions and further predictions about what they think will happen. It's important to keep in mind that no correcting incorrect predictions, encourage all guesses, and make plausible predictions. It's appropriate with short stories, children's stories, and history texts. And a recurring theme in these strategies is to not highlight incorrectness, rather focus on the intent over form. So on the right portion of the slide, this is a coding system for marking miscues. I like the standardized nature of this. You see what you do in the event of insertion, when they're missing a word, when they omitted a word, when the learner can't supply the word, when they substitute a new word for the intended word, or they use the wrong word and then correct themselves. These are all the symbols. So it's a caret, circle, parentheses, writing one above the other, and writing one above the other with a check. As far as the chart on the left, these are just a sampling of instruments to be used by reading level. So beginners can use running records where the teacher checks the correct words, codes the trouble words, and this tests reading fluency, ability to process print. Intermediate readers perhaps use a miscue analysis, look for deviations, and ask students to summarize. What's tested? Strategies for processing print, possible difficulties in comprehension of information. For advanced readers, comprehension checks, where you look at the ability to understand narrative and expository texts, and it tests the ability to comprehend materials at a high level. So for all readers, one instrument is an informal reading inventory, the IRI, which establishes reading levels, and it tests the ability to comprehend and process text. And lastly, for those, this is appropriate for all readers and writers. The instrument's a portfolio test assessment. The teacher and the student collect various writing samples, and what's tested is how students perceive their literacy ability.
Foundations for supporting English learners in content reading. When we talk about effective teaching for English learners, especially in content areas like science or history, understanding the reading process is paramount. This process occurs in three main phases: pre-reading, during reading, and post-reading. Each phase supports comprehension through specific strategies. For example, in the pre-reading phase, students set a purpose and activate background knowledge. During reading, they monitor understanding and clarify confusion. After reading, they summarize and reflect on what they learned. These skills are not innate, they need to be taught and practiced. Two key purposes for reading are described by Louis Rosenblatt as aesthetic and efferent reading. In aesthetic reading, students read for the experience, how the text makes them feel, or the images it creates. In efferent reading, students focus on extracting information or learning specific facts. Teachers should help English learners understand this different purpose and choose strategies accordingly. Beyond the reading process itself, a foundational step is to genuinely know your English learners before assessing their reading abilities. This goes beyond just their current English proficiency. It involves understanding their first language literacy, what reading and writing skills and strategies they bring from their native language. We also need to assess their English proficiency in both oral communication, which helps with classroom interaction, and academic English, which is crucial for understanding textbooks and lectures. Furthermore, gaining insight into their prior educational experiences help us understand their learning background and any cultural context that might influence their learning. This knowledge helps you choose appropriate texts and assessment that are fair and supportive. Finally, pre-reading strategies play a vital role. Their purpose is to mentally and linguistically prepare students, activate relevant background knowledge, and build motivation by clearly stating the goal for reading. Don't assume students know what they do. Let them know exactly what you want them to gain from the text. These strategies create a strong foundation for comprehension. Scaffolding comprehension through explicit instruction. Now, let's look at how to scaffold comprehension with effective strategies. Pre-reading tools include anticipation guides, preview guides, field trips, and multimedia. During reading, we use methods like guided reading, direct reading, thinking activity, the request procedure, jigsaw activities, and learning logs. Metacognition is key. Teach students to monitor their understanding, clarify confusion, and reflect on their thinking. Reinforcing the early point, explicit expectations matter. Always state what the student should be doing with the text and model how to approach it. Also, providing concrete structures such as realia, visual, and experimental learning help students make meaningful connections to content. Vocabulary, text structure, and background knowledge. Vocabulary plays a foundational role in comprehension. Teach it explicitly through clustering, pre-reading previews, and context-based strategies. Understanding text structures like hidden, subhidden, and signal words significantly improves retention and comprehension. Teach students how to identify these features and use them as reading aids. Introduce the students to cohesive ties, such as pronouns and connectors, which binds ideas together in a text. These linguistic features are often overlooked but critical for meaning making. When we work with narratives, English learners need explicit instruction on story element, settings, characters, conflicts, and resolution. Graphic organizers and story maps can help visualize these elements. Lastly, building background knowledge is essential. Use strategies like guest speakers, simulations, and culturally relevant materials to connect new content to students' lived experiences.
Finally, we have post-reading strategies. They are important because they are a great tool to organize and remember information. We have different examples like rehearsing. This strategy helps students retain information by practicing how to recall, organize, and express what they've learned. It can be oral, written, or visual depending on the task. When students restructure information, and especially when they have an audience, it pushes them to be clearer and more organized, which reinforces their understanding. We also have Venn diagrams where students can compare and contrast contents. Venn diagrams are a visual strategy used to make connections between new ideas and bridge them with their prior knowledge, deepening comprehension. Finally, we have mapping. This one is especially useful when students need to identify key ideas in a text and see how subtopics are related. They can use tools like concept maps, mind maps, or topic webs to visually organize and remember what they've read. Now, let's talk about writing across curriculum. According to research, writing is the best tool as students who write more tend to learn more. We can find different types of activities like journals, learning logs, photo essays, and grading or oral research projects. I remember doing one that was very similar to the photo essays and collaborative projects mentioned in the book, and I think it could be a great example. So during my bachelor's degree, I took French, and we had a project where we had to research places in our country that we thought were worth visiting. We had to create a brochure and present it to a French-speaking person who would listen to us and ask us questions about those places. And we also had to ask them questions about their country and compare their culture with ours. So in this project, while we were learning French, we also explored geography, diversity, and tourism. It was a meaningful project because we built on our background knowledge and explored concepts we were interested in. So this experience also reflects the main idea of the KWL strategy. There should be different ways to assess student knowledge, giving them the opportunity to show their unique abilities. Assessment also depends on the content being taught, the student's language abilities, and their prior knowledge. In general, portfolios are one of the most complete tools we can use, as they allow students to include a variety of work, such as drafts, projects, artwork, poetry, and posters. By reviewing their portfolios, we can clearly see their growth and progress over the year. Finally, rubrics or charts for keeping track of students' progress also give us organized criteria and a clear idea about how the student perform in reading, comprehension, and in their attitude toward reading.